All right, hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Spoiler Alert podcast. It's the first time I can say this because it's episode 2. Note that not every episode is going to be the same. We don't even know what we're doing. Ty, we're kind of figuring this out as we go.
Just glad we made it to episode 2. We're doing the damn thing. Let's go.
Yeah, not canceled yet, but it's coming. So a little rundown of today's episode. I think a weekly segment we'll likely do is upcoming movies and then maybe some movie news. Those seem to be pretty stable, I would imagine, to have weekly. But after that, we are going to get into the two main segments of the show. Ty saw 2 movies this weekend, Knock at the Cabin and Infinity Pool. I did not see them. So without spoiling anything, Ty is going to either convince me that it's worth going to see them or not. And then finally, we're going to finish it up with a review of M3GAN. And that's spelled with a 3, so it's very unique. M3GAN, yeah. All right, so Ty, let's kick it off with upcoming movies. I feel this is maybe worse than what it was last week. At least there were some that I recognized. It was like, yeah, I'll probably see that. Here's some that I'm probably not going to force myself to go see. Starting with number 1, Magic Mike's Last Dance. Ty, I thought this series kind of ended years ago.
For Channing Tatum for making a trilogy out of movies where he's just a hot guy doing hot guy shit, you know? Full disclosure, though, I've never seen any one of them.
I have seen the first one. I'll be honest about that. Don't remember a thing about it other than he's in it and Matthew McConaughey. And, I like both of them, so cool. Good for him. However, Selma Hayek is in this one, so that's a little more enticing.
Yeah, noted hot lady.
Yeah, so probably a skip on that one. Next one we have, I don't even know if this is actually coming out in theaters. According to IMDb, it is, but it feels like, I don't even know if it's a real thing anymore, but you know how they used to have straight to DVD or straight to VHS type movies?
Yeah.
That's what this feels like. It is called Seriously Red, and I don't know if it's a true story or what the hell it's about, but it's about a lady who, in order to become a realtor or maybe boost her realty career, she impersonates Dolly Parton.
I generally don't know how movies like this get made. It makes me think that I could definitely write a decent movie these days and have it released somewhere. Like Dolly Parton in 2023. Who's this movie for? I haven't even watched a trailer or anything because this just sounds so out of our ballpark that I'm not interested one bit.
Yeah, there's not a chance I'm going to see this movie. This feels like another old lady movie. We got two of those 2 weeks in a row last week with 80 for Brady, but at least, maybe 80 for Brady has a little bit of substance behind it and some target audience. I don't know who this is for, unless I thought maybe it's a true story.
Okay.
And if that's the case, maybe that's a little bit more interesting. But as far as I can tell, this is just made up.
Yeah, very weird premise to a movie.
Wait, what the fuck? All right, hold up.
Oh shit.
Is that okay? There's Taylor Swift is apparently in the movie, not actual Taylor Swift, but someone playing her, and it's someone named Jonathan Walsh. So this might be a drag movie. I don't know what's happening.
This sounds all over the place. I don't know what the hell's going on. Where am I? What are we doing here?
Wait, Rose Byrne is in this though, and she was in M3GAN, wasn't she? Am I wrong? What was she in that I just saw?
I'm not sure.
I'm looking right now. Insidious. I didn't just see that though.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah, but she's in it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
All right, whatever. Cool, great. Doesn't matter. We're not seeing it.
Yeah, pass.
All right, next on the list. I'm gonna butcher saying this, but Shusera, the Bone Woman. This is a horror film. Has a little bit of an interesting presence. Presence. preface? I can't think of the word. I'm going to have
Premise?
a stroke here. Premise. Wow.
There we go.
All right. Thank you. But a woman has always dreamed about becoming a mother, but now that she's pregnant, she feels that something is wrong. So, maybe she's going to give birth to a devil or something like that. It is a Mexican horror movie. Likely why we haven't heard much about it, but some of those foreign horror movies hit very well.
Agreed. There's a lot of those foreign horror movies on Netflix that do really well. I haven't heard or seen anything about this until today, but just looking it up, it looks like it already has a pretty good review from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like at 97% certified fresh. So maybe I'll give it a go if I can find it or catch it streaming somewhere. Sounded interesting enough.
Yeah. And then another horror movie coming out, She Came from the Woods. It is a comedy horror movie. When I first saw this, I initially thought of, have you seen the Boy Scouts Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse?
No, but I wanted to see that. I thought the same thing. I thought this looked familiar.
Yeah, it's really silly, funny, but also pretty solid. This looks like, every movie in the 80s that was a horror movie was set on a campground, all of the good ones, Friday the 13th, obviously, all 15 of them or however many they made. Mm-hmm. But the description, camp counselors accidentally unleash old evil on the last night of summer camp. Again, it seems like a movie geared towards teenagers to go see for a date night. And let's be honest, horror movies make the best date night movies.
100%. This definitely sounds like something I enjoy. I watched the trailer and I definitely will watch this. I love the whole 80s vibe and that whole comedy horror genre. The trailer actually made me laugh out loud. That doesn't seem to take itself too seriously, and that's what you want from a comedy horror.
And that's where, like, there's some movies that, like, they want to be funny and serious at the same time, but they can't decide. It's like you kind of got to fall into one camp or the other. And that was a problem I think I had with Us. We briefly talked about it on the last episode, but it's like they throw in these random ass jokes and try to have some comic relief, but it doesn't hit.
Right.
But some familiar faces in this movie. We start with Cara Buono. I'm so bad with names, but anyway, she played Kelly Moltisanti in The Sopranos, who was Christopher's wife after Adriana.
I never realized that, but shout out to Chrissy. He's killing it. This lady's pretty much a MILF. So good for Chrissy.
And that's exactly who she plays in Stranger Things as well. She plays the MILF Karen Wheeler, who obviously likes the younger folks. If you've seen Stranger Things, we won't get into that. The next one on the list is Claire Foley. She isn't super famous for things, but she was the daughter in the Sinister movie, so she has a background in horror films.
Okay. And
then finally, William Sadler. He was the Grim Reaper in the Bill and Ted movies, so that pretty good thing to hit on for comedy. He was Haywood in The Shawshank Redemption, which is great. Jim in The Mist, so he's in a couple Stephen King films. And then he was the president in Iron Man 3.
Okay, whenever I looked this guy up, after seeing him in the trailer, I thought he was the guy that plays Detective Crashmore, and I Think You Should Leave. Shout out to I Think You Should Leave, the funniest show on Netflix, the best sketch comedy show going right now.
All right, well, maybe that's another thing you got to convince me to watch because I've never seen it.
Oh my gosh, dude. You will literally laugh out loud. Tay, my girlfriend, who she has about the same sense of humor as I do, she even loves it. It's just hysterical.
All right, you said Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix. I Think You Should Leave. It's got Tim Robinson in it. He's the funniest guy going right now.
Let's do it. Yeah, no, I will throw that on my list for sure. I got to find reasons to keep Netflix around because there aren't many.
I know, that's true these days.
Next one here. So I'll be super honest. Before I actually watched the trailer and dug into it, I read the description and it made me cringe a little bit. But I think it's going to be better than the description suggests. It's called I, Mordecai. A Holocaust survivor born and raised in a different time now must face the realities of the modern world. When confronted with an unfamiliar object, an iPhone, will Mordecai be able to fit into a world that has changed so much around him? So when I first read that description, I thought it was going to be about time travel.
I thought the exact same thing.
Like, rewrite that. I don't want it to be about someone in the Holocaust that time travels to the future, sees an iPhone, and thinks, "Hey, I was better off in the Holocaust." Like that's just
Damn, take me
horrible,
back.
horrible wording. Um,
Up until today, I hadn't heard of this one either. But speaking of like
no.
SNL sketch comedy, this sounds like a terrible skit, like a Holocaust survivor. Give him an iPhone and see what
Yeah.
happens.
But
Also,
then,
putting an I in front of a name sounds like such a 2010 thing to do.
yeah, not even like, yes, the iPhone does that, but like their new stuff really doesn't.
Yeah,
They even are kind of past that gimmick.
I did watch the trailer and I kind of get what they're going for, like a heartwarming, goofy comedy.
Yes.
Give Grandpa an iPhone, whatever. But I could not be less interested. I'm gonna pass on this one too. Good for Sean Astin though. Keep getting that money, Samwise Gamgee.
Exactly. So, yeah, few people in this. Sean Austin already brought him up. Fantastic actor, by the way. He's in everything.
Absolutely.
Lord of the Rings. My favorite is Doug from 51st Dates. So that's
Yeah.
where I recognize him. And maybe people get mad because of Lord of the Rings, but either way. And then, of course, he was Mikey in the Goonies way back when. His buddy is about to win an Oscar. I'm excited for that. Obviously Rudy, and then speaking of Stranger Things, he was Bob in that before he got. It's been a few years. This isn't really a spoiler. Before he got ripped to shreds,
Before he got fucked up.
A couple other people. Mordecai, played by Judd Hirsch. I'm assuming that's a Jewish name I can't pronounce.
Mm-hmm.
Known for a bunch of things. He's Uncle Boris in The Fabelmans, so obviously a newer movie there, up for an Oscar. Alex Rieger in the series Taxi with Danny DeVito. He was also Hellinger in A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, and this one I found hilarious. But he is Louis Globerman in Big Mouth.
Huh.
Other person in Big Mouth, Carol Kane, is in this movie, and she was also in Taxi. So it feels like they're trying to just get people who have already worked together because they have that relationship already.
That old person chemistry.
Exactly. Can't work with anyone new. That's there it is. You can't work with new things. He's working with an iPhone. It's not going to work. And then finally here, a movie. I'm sure it stands for something. I didn't figure out what it stood for, but RMN. This is also another international horror movie. It seems like a few days before Christmas, having quit his job in Germany, Matthias returns to his multi-ethnic Transylvanian village. Of course, as soon as you say Transylvania, vampires. That's
right.
What I'm thinking. Otherwise, Transylvania is not talked about at all. He wishes to involve himself in more in the education of his son, Rudy, left for too long in the care of his mother, Anna, and to rid the boy of the unresolved fears that have taken hold of him. He's preoccupied with his old father, Otto, and also eager to see his ex-lover. You can't put a C and then an S right next to each other. Cecilia? When a few new workers are hired at the small factory that Cecilia manages, the peace of the community is disturbed. Underlying fears grip the adults, and frustrations, conflicts, and passions erupt through the thin veneer of apparent understanding and calm. So that sounds like that was written by someone whose first language isn't English.
Agreed.
But I don't know. I read it, looked at the trailer a little bit, doesn't really spike any interest for me.
Yeah, this is another one I hadn't heard of until today. I watched the trailer with English subtitles. I think it's French. I watched it with English subtitles, and I still didn't know what the hell was going on. Probably going to pass on this one, too.
All right. So, Ty, you got some news for us in the movie world.
Oh, yeah. Here we go, baby. All right. So, kicking it off, we got Dave Bautista, who we're going to be hearing about here with Knock in the Cabin, is pushing hard to play Marcus Phoenix in Netflix. The Gears of War movie. I didn't know this was going to be a movie. I figured it would be a series. So hopefully they do the source material some justice, because I love the Gears games, and I think he'd make a hell of a Marcus Phoenix. He was in the Gears games too. He's been in the game, so he wants to do it. Let him do it.
He looks exactly like him as well.
Exactly. Ex-wrestler. Like, he's got the whole look, the whole persona. Now he's proved that he can act, so give it to him.
Yeah, throw him in there. There's no reason not to. And even if it's just like a fan favor, you're going to get people to watch it that way.
Right. And one more quick Batista note. He came out and said that Austin Butler doesn't sound anything like Elvis in Dune Part 2, which I forgot that we have coming out this year in November, I believe. But yeah, wow. Elvis, nothing like Elvis, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So can't wait. We'll definitely have to do a Dune recap before that releases. While
Was
we're
he in
talking
the
about
first Dune?
no, he wasn't. He's gonna be a whole brand new character.
Okay, all right.
So while we're talking about November releases, Gladiator 2 is set to come out in November. So we all know the first one's a classic and it's great. And I still haven't watched it the whole way through. So like I said, Tay, this is her favorite movie. So it's pretty unbelievable that I still haven't watched this yet. So definitely going to have to get that in before November.
So I'll jump in here on that a little bit. So Gladiator, this isn't a spoiler by any means, but it had an ending, right? Mm-hmm. So there's like no need for there to be a second one. I don't know if it's going to be a prequel of how he came up and became who he is, you know, a general in the army. I don't know. I'm glad Ridley Scott's coming back for it. And maybe he's just trying to do things before, you know, he doesn't have very long left. He's like 80 something.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I really feel about a second Gladiator, especially when it doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, I agree. Even though I haven't seen it, I agree. It seems like they're doing this now with a lot of sequels. They're coming out far too late or whenever there doesn't need to be one at all.
Yep. No original ideas.
So we mentioned Stephen King a little bit earlier too. So one of his newest books, Stephen King, one of my favorite authors, it's called Billy Summers. It's not a horror like a lot of his other work, but it's a crime novel about an aging assassin that accepts one last job before his planned retirement. It's going to be adapted to film, and they're hoping to have Leonardo DiCaprio, Ida Starr, and J.J. Abrams set to direct. I have the book. I have to read it before this comes out, but count me in. This sounds great. Those two and the source material, I'm in.
Awesome. Yeah, Stephen King, you know, obviously he's well known for his horror stuff. He has a lot of non-horror stuff. Shawshank, that's not horror. Mm-hmm. And Stand By Me, also not horror.
Stand By Me is such a great movie.
Fantastic movie. One of the first rated R movies I saw, actually. But yeah, very good. And those were both just short stories. They didn't really start out as a full-length book. It was just a short story. And they ended up probably being some of his best movies.
Agreed. So two more things here. Blumhouse has begun production on a live-action Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which, I mean, who gives a shit? So I was never a big Five Nights at Freddy's guy, but this seems like it's coming out long past all the hype around that game. Yeah. Like we said, too many movies coming out past their due date anyway. Blumhouse does have some good movies under their belt, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think this is going to hit that mark. And also, we had Willy's Wonderland that came out a few years ago with Nick Cage, and it was basically the same exact thing. So watch that instead, because it's a weird one. It's not great, but it's at least the same vibe.
The problem I have with really a lot of things is if you're a gamer, and I know there's associations with that word that aren't great for whatever reason, but if you play video games, usually the video game is going to be better than the TV series or the show or whatever. And sadly, what that means is when they do eventually convert it into a TV series or a show, it's not made for you. It's not made for the people that played the games. I think maybe the exception, it seems, is The Last of Us right now. I have not dug into it yet. I do plan to. But obviously, a lot of people upset with that movie. A lot of people upset with that second game as well, but for stupid reasons, for very stupid reasons. What you should be mad about is the Halo TV series, because it is dog shit, has nothing to do with the movie, or I'm sorry, the game, and it is just awful. So that's how I feel. They don't make these shows for us, the people that play the games.
Agreed. And you're absolutely right about The Last of Us. I know you're waiting to binge it all at once. It is amazing. I can't wait to catch episode 4 tonight. So, and then lastly here, just wanted to touch on all of the new DC projects that are announced here by James Gunn, with a big Marvel movie coming out next week. That's, spoiler alert, hopefully going to be next week's episode. We got some big DC news here. Hopefully under James Gunn's new leadership, DC can start putting out a lot better movies, because everything he's had his hand in has been absolutely great for them, with Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which was one of the best shows of last year. So here's a quick list of the movies coming out. There's 5. So Superman Legacy, this is going to be written by Gunn, and it's going to follow Kal-El Superman as he reconciles his extraterrestrial origins with his human family and upbringing. So basically a Superman reboot.
Okay.
Next
Obviously
one,
why they kicked out Henry.
Right. I think they're looking for a younger Superman as well.
Sure.
So, okay, the next one here is called The Authority, which I've never heard of. It's a group of 7 heroes with very high concept superpowers I've never heard of it. It sounds like the Avengers, nobody heard of them before. Okay, and then we have The Brave and the Bold, which will introduce Batman and Robin in this unusual father-son story. So not Robert Pattinson's Batman, which we won't see again until October 2025. Holy shit. But another Batman. Starting to get too convoluted here with all the different Batman and Jokers all over the place here.
It sounds like The Brave and the Bold sounds like a soap opera.
Agreed.
So
The Young and the Restless, The Brave and the Bold.
Well, we'll see how that is. I'll be honest, I'm not sold on just about any of these. I don't want to say I have that superhero fatigue because I don't know if that's actually a thing. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie, and I'm going to see it. But
Agreed.
it has to interest me, and it's a shame that it feels like most of the characters that are popular and deemed interesting have kind of already been done.
Exactly. And that's one thing that James Gunn has been able to do is bring out those lesser known characters and bring them to the forefront, which he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, which everybody loves now. So we'll see. Maybe they'll end up being good. So 2 more movies here on the slate. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Yawn. Between this and a Superman reboot, like I said, getting too convoluted here with all the super people. And then we got Swamp Thing, which this sounds interesting. It will investigate the dark origins of the Swamp Thing, which I admittedly know nothing about.
Yeah.
And then, so as far as those go, okay. And then we also have some DC shows coming to HBO Max, which I think these have potential to be better than everything we just listed. So here we go. Creature Commandos with Gunn writing. This was probably going to be similar to Suicide Squad, as it will feature Amanda Waller forming another super team of monstrous prisoners. Hopefully more people like Weasel and the King Shark from the Suicide Squad because they were hilarious. So it sounds like that kind of vibe.
Interesting.
And
you
then,
can't have what's his name? Whoever played Weasel in Deadpool.
Yeah.
He's TJ Miller. He's canceled.
Yep, cancel him. Okay, then we have Waller. Speaking of Amanda Waller, she gets her own series here with Viola Davis returning. She's great in this role, and I'm sure she's going to connect with all of this somehow. Speaking of Viola Davis, she just won a Grammy tonight, giving her EGOT status, which that's pretty elite company, so good for her.
What a Grammy? What'd she sing? Or
it's
write?
Like a spoken word album, which I hear is probably like the easiest way to go ahead and get an EGOT if you need it.
All right, good for her.
Spoken word album. Not going to listen to it. Who cares? Anyway. So then this one sounds the most interesting to me out of all of them. It's called Booster Gold. This is DC Comics' longtime comic relief character. He's a time traveler who uses basic technology and consumer appliances from the future to make himself a superhero in the present day. I've never heard of this, but it sounds hilarious. It kind of sounds like you could give that Deadpool and Guardians vibe to it,
Sure.
But that just sounds funny. And then we got 2 more things here. Lanterns, which is set to be an enormous event series focused on an unraveling dark mystery with the Green Lanterns. And to date, DC hasn't had any luck with the Green Lantern project, so hopefully introducing them in the series will change that. And then one more thing, Paradise Lost, which will touch on Wonder Woman's history and character arc. Yawn, who gives a shit? And that's it.
Yeah, for Lanterns, it feels like... I don't know who was... Wait, was Ryan Reynolds the last Green Lantern, or did they do another one after him?
I feel like he probably was the last one, and they gave up after that. Unless there was another in like one of the team-up movies, I'm not too sure.
If he was the last one, then the trend seems to be Ryan Reynolds needs to play a horrible version of the character, and then they revamp it, and it's way better. So he did that with Deadpool in X-Men Wolverine. Awful Deadpool, doesn't make any sense in that movie. And then they turn him into the actual Deadpool and are fantastic.
Yep.
Last time he was Green Lantern, terrible. And then maybe they reboot it and it's better. However, he's not Green Lantern, so probably because he got that fat Marvel contract that he's not going to jump back into DC.
Agreed. So hopefully James Gunn can right the ship here for DC. We'll see what happens.
All right, Ty, the time has come. Convince me to see or not see. I don't know your exact opinion here, but for Knock at the Cabin and Infinity Pool, whatever one you want to start with, convince me. I'm ready.
Okay, let's start with Knock at the Cabin. I'll give a quick synopsis here. While vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand that the family make a choice to avert the apocalypse. I'll say that I had high expectations going into this movie, reading that it was one of M. Night's best in years, And I'll say that I think that's true considering the last few he's put out. I love a good thriller and like apocalyptic type movie. This movie's got a great trailer. It's got a great poster. So I was interested going into it. High expectations. And like we were talking about earlier here, Dave Bautista, I'm a big fan and he's absolutely great in this. This might be his best role to date. This had me thinking about his role in Blade Runner 2049 and how it differs from a lot of his other roles. And now he's got this. And according to IMDb, M. Night actually cast Bautista after he was impressed by his Blade Runner performance. So there it is. He plays his character perfectly. You believe everything he's saying, and he pulls off the intensity and creepy cultist vibe perfectly. The family also does a really good job in their roles. One of the dads, fun fact, Ben Eldridge is his name. He's actually in a movie called Spoiler Alert, so good for him.
Get him on the show.
Yeah. The little girl is she's funny too. She's not just some annoying kid actor. She's pretty funny. All that being said, I do think this movie kind of stalls out around the middle, and I was expecting a lot more from it. I don't know if that's just the nature of M. Night Shyamalan movies now, just not always expecting a huge twist or payoff, but for being rated R, there's really not much blood or gore on the screen either. It definitely seems like it just missed being PG-13. This is M. Night's second rated R movie only after The Happening. So this is based on a book. I do want to read the book and see how the movie ended up being different. And there's a lot more that I could go into, symbolism, Easter eggs, but without spoiling anything, I definitely recommend watching it.
Okay.
The casual moviegoer and movie buffs alike can both enjoy this movie to varying degrees. I would say maybe wait until it's streaming, though. It's good with some excellent performances and a really cool premise, but it didn't blow me away by any means. I wouldn't run to the theater to see it. I ended up on a 65 out of 100 on it.
So let's talk about that. So maybe I'll have some questions here to maybe see if I can make up my mind. So I was already pretty much planning on seeing it, but I was kind of gonna go either way. We talked about how M. Night has disappointed in the past, and you brought that up where they say it's his best movie in years, but also the bar seems pretty low on that. Now, was it better than expected because of that low bar? Or can it stand on its own? If you didn't know about any of his other films, you're like, yeah, this was pretty solid. Does it stand out in that way?
I think this movie definitely stands on its own. You're right, though. There is that bar. But I think regarding that, I think it is better than any of his last couple movies. But I definitely think they can stand on its own as well. Okay.
How is Ron Weasley in it? That's really what I care about.
Ron Weasley plays his part pretty well. Honestly, I'm not going to get into that too much. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay, fair.
So I think he does pretty well in his role.
Okay, and then I'm glad you brought up the child actor, Christian Cui, C-U-I. I'm awful at names. That's going to be this whole show. But I'll be honest, I'm glad you brought her up and said she wasn't super annoying, because when I watched the trailer, there's like that scene where she's like screaming in silence, and I'm like, oh God, it just made me cringe a little bit. I'm like, why are we doing this? But if she's okay, awesome, because I know there's always a lot of stuff around child actors. They are put on a big stage to be reviewed and critiqued, and that's not fair for a child to begin with. They don't have the years of experience. It's difficult to act. You can't expect a child to just come in and do it. But all they really have to do is come in and not be annoying, and I think it works out well. And I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we get into M3GAN.
Agreed.
Awesome. Anything against the movie? You say don't go see it right now in theaters. It's not worth it. Wait for it to stream. Is that really your only dig on it? I guess it's worth a watch, but not worth paying for.
I would say that it does. It kind of stalls out around the middle, like I was saying, and I left the theater feeling like I was expecting more from the movie.
Okay. And then runtime, it's an hour and 40 minutes. Did that feel too long? You say it stalls out. So do you regret the time you spent into it?
No, it honestly didn't. It didn't feel like a long movie. It was a pretty quick watch. Okay. So that's one thing it has going for it too. Like I said, I did give it some criticism here, but all in all, it's not a terrible movie. So I'd recommend seeing it.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, like I said, you didn't push me away from seeing it, but maybe I do wait now until it is streaming and not. It's difficult to me to get to a theater to begin with right now, but if it's not worth it, I'm not going to push it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be streaming here not too long. Most things do these days.
Awesome. So let's jump into the other movie, Infinity Pool, which you also saw this weekend. Was it the day after?
I saw it the very next day, so I think I went Thursday and Friday.
So you have a good, it's in your mind, you can compare them.
Both are fresh in my mind. So here we go, Infinity Pool. I'm going to preface it by saying I like this movie the most out of the three we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So short synopsis here. James and M. Foster are enjoying an all-inclusive beach vacation in the fictional island of Latolka when a fatal accident exposes the resort's perverse subculture of hedonistic tourism, reckless violence, and surreal horrors. So it's directed by Brandon Cronenberg, the son of the legendary filmmaker David Cronenberg. I honestly didn't know what to expect going into this movie. You don't get a lot out of the trailer, but man, this movie is a trip. Think about the White Lotus right now, if it was on bath salt or if it was on acid or both. And I don't mean that in a bad way. This is one of the weirdest and wildest movies I've ever seen. Another movie with Mia Goth. She's amazing yet again, just as she was in X and Pearl. I don't think she gets enough praise for how good of an actress she is. She pulls off acting genuinely crazy and insane with ease in all of these movies she's been in. There are scenes in this movie where I laughed out loud at how nuts she's acting, and I'm not even sure if it's meant to be funny or what. So from now on, whenever she's in anything, count me in. Okay. Alexander Skarsgård's also great in this he's another under the radar great actor right now. He's been in this and he's been in The Northman. His performance in this is on a wide spectrum. He's funny and serious to just full of dread. So this movie's definitely highly stylized, and some people might be confused by, not really like that, or turned off by that if they're watching, but that's definitely the kind of vibe the movie's going for. You're supposed to feel disoriented and confused and not really know what the hell you're watching. Apparently the theatrical release is a lot more tame and less graphic than the one shown at Sundance, so I wouldn't be surprised if a director's cut or unrated version shows up here eventually.
Nice.
So unlike Knock at the Cabin, this movie definitely earns its R rating. There's definitely graphic violence, nudity, and language throughout. According to IMDb, it was originally rated NC-17, but then given an R rating upon appeal. So basically, I can't recommend this movie enough. Maybe even while it's still in theaters to get a more visceral experience, I'll say. I'm not sure how much this movie would be enjoyed by a casual moviegoer, though. If you go into this expecting a cookie-cutter mystery or thriller, I think you'll be confused as to what the hell you just watched, and I think that rings true because the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is only 51% compared to the 86% certified fresh critic score. I still think it would be good to stream, but definitely not the same as a theater experience because you're in there, it's dark, the way that it's edited and cut, it just makes for that experience. So like I said, this is my favorite out of the three films we're going to talk about today. And just last week, talking about Nope, the more I thought about this movie and wrote about it, I liked it even more. So I ended up with an 85 out of 100 on this, and it's the best of 2023 so far for me.
Very nice. Yeah, easily convinced me to see this one. And I didn't know much about it at all, even that it was coming out. It seemed to kind of fly under the radar for me. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I don't really watch cable TV. Everything I see is like an ad on YouTube or something like that, and it never popped up there for me. So I'm glad to know about it now. I'm glad you saw it and you're telling me it's worth seeing. And then you compared it to The White Lotus, which is one of my favorite shows right now.
Agreed. I like both seasons of that show.
It's a great show. You got Stifler's mom in it, and I'll watch her in anything. She's hilarious.
Stifler's mom.
But yeah, okay. I'm glad it is. So weird horror seems to be a thing right now, especially with like A24. Was it made by A24, by the way?
I don't think so, but it definitely has that kind of vibe to it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if like A24 had like Mia Goth like locked in on a contract or something.
They should
be a wild person.
She's the goat.
Yeah. Which is another A24 movie, The Goat.
Oh yeah, The Goat. Shout out to it.
But yeah, definitely we'll give it a go. I'm watching the trailer. Well, I'm not watching it too in depth, but it is on here right now, and Skarsgård's being walked around like a dog. So I can see where the wild part comes in with it. Definitely one I want to see. Knock at the Cabin was one I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll see it if it's out there. This one I'll kick myself in the ass a little bit more to go see it sooner than later.
Yeah, I couldn't recommend this movie enough. Definitely flew under the radar and came out of nowhere, it seems like, but definitely try to see it if you can. If not, I'm sure it'll be streaming here pretty soon because I'm not sure if people are running to the theater to see it.
This director done anything else? Nothing I've seen.
Brandon Cronenberg, he's done another movie called Possessor, which I think is on Hulu. I haven't watched it, but it's on my list. It sounded kind of wild.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Oh, Sean Bean's in it.
Ah, okay.
He probably dies because he dies in everything he's in.
Yeah, he does.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ty.
Oh yeah,
I like that type of segment. Hopefully, I can do that to you at some point. Maybe I should do that to you for the Gladiator. Why you need to watch it?
Yeah, I do like it too. I think it's a good segment idea for sure.
Cool. Probably more of those in the future. But let's get into the meat of the episode where we review M3GAN. So started off we're going to go spoiler free here. And then we will let you know when we will start giving spoilers. That's when you can either A, turn it off, or B, listen to it if you don't really care about spoilers. But we'll start off just with the premise of the show. So here it is. When Gemma, who is a very smart engineer for a toy company, she suddenly becomes a caretaker of her orphaned 8-year-old niece. Her parents tragically pass away, and she has to take her into her custody. Gemma is unsure and unprepared to be a parent and never really wanted to. So under this intense pressure from her taking Katie in and the pressure she has at work, she's like, I don't know how to take care of a kid, but what I do know is children toys. And so she starts to make the M3GAN prototype and pairs her with Katie. And she's trying to get two birds stoned at once here. She's trying to take care of Katie and make her, happy again. Obviously, a tragic passing of her parents is a hard thing to take on. But not only could that solve that problem, but if it works well, the M3GAN prototype can become her project at the toy company and maybe even save her job that she's a little bit in jeopardy or under the microscope here, being watched. So, Ty, let's start off. Did you enjoy the movie? Was this an enjoyable movie? It was one that I saw a little later than when it came out, but in general, was it enjoyable, worth a watch?
I definitely think it's worth seeing. At this point, I'd probably wait for it to be streaming sometime in the near future. I wouldn't run to the theater to see this one either right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I was worried, and funny enough, same production company, James Wan producing these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was worried it was going to be essentially Annabelle with a robot.
Right.
And while it kind of was, there's something different about it, right? Because futuristic. The future's coming. The future's kind of already here. People talk about Chat GPT and all these AI generated artwork. It scares people. Mm-hmm. And so the technology is brought into here, and it is creepy. I don't like dolls to begin with, but when you give one a brain, you're asking for trouble. Where has that ever gone well in a movie when you start trying to make these robots smart?
Right. It never goes well.
Yeah. So I think we're both under the impression we enjoyed it. It was, I don't regret seeing it, but kind of after a while, it's like, okay, we get it. We understand what it is. Going forward, she's connected to this girl, and she will do anything to protect her. So getting a little more into the behind the scenes stuff, how do you feel about the acting? We talked about a child actor at Knock at the Cabin. How did you feel about the child acting here? And this is a weird question. Let's focus on Katie for now, and then maybe we'll talk about the acting of the child that played M3GAN.
I thought the actress that played Katie in this did a pretty good job for having to play like a young orphaned girl being raised by her aunt. I think she did pretty good. She stood out as probably one of the best performances in the movie to me, at least.
So when I saw her face, I'm like, man, why do I know you? But she was in Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Okay, that's why she looks so familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it either.
Yes, so she plays the younger version of the main character.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Young Nell, that's the
Nell, yep.
So she plays her, and I'm like, okay, you got some experience, horror movies, did well. In this, I felt like she annoyed me a little bit, but then I had to think about it a little bit. I'm like, okay, her parents just died. She's going to act out. She's going to kind of be a little turd about things. Sure, that makes sense. And then I thought about it more. I'm like, you know what? Kids are kind of assholes. She did perfect. All right, good job. She's an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think she did well there. And then talking about so I found it super interesting how the M3GAN robot was done. It was done both by a child actor for the scenes where she had to move around, and there was also a puppet that they would use for when she was just kind of sitting there. When it was the child actor, her name is Amy Donald. She was the body, and then she would wear a silicone mask, and then they use CGI to do everything for the mask itself. But she did all of her own stunt work, which is pretty cool. And then like even like the weird like I don't know, dancing around and the running. That again, this is not a spoiler. This is in the trailer. On all fours, that was her.
Wow.
So I'm imagining, she's like done gymnastics and stuff since she was little. I mean, she's already little, but just really interesting that they're doing things that way. And all she had to do was just wear a little silicone mask, and guess what? She's an actress now in the star of a movie.
Yeah.
Some spoiler-free trivia. We talked about this with the other movie, Infinity Pool. It started out as an NC-17 movie, and then they're like, "Oh no, that doesn't hit the target audience. We're not going to make money. Let's dull it down and make it rated R." They did the same thing here. It was originally rated R, but then the trailer trended on TikTok, and they're like, "Oh shit! Now we need to target this demographic instead." And that's why it is PG-13.
I definitely thought this could have benefited from being a rated R movie. I feel like if you're going to have a movie about a killer robotic doll, just go all in and do it, But I see where they're coming from, though, when they wanted to target that younger audience.
Gotta make that money, I guess.
Absolutely.
The writer does expect an uncut version to come out, so that's good.
Okay.
We'll talk about it in the spoiler section, but yes, there are some scenes in here where you can tell where they got cut. You're like, wait, why didn't we get to see that? Stuff like that. What else? M3GAN stands for Model 3 Generative Android. I don't even know if that was said in the movie, but that's what that stands for. And then, as we talked about before, the production company is the same for both this movie and Annabelle. The idea actually came while they were brainstorming for killer doll ideas that eventually did become Annabelle. But this was also discussed during that meeting.
Okay. One more thing I did see about this, I saw that M3GAN's voice was modeled after Gladys from Portal, which is another kind of AI gone rogue. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. They should have just took her, but that's another thing. So they had the body of M3GAN as this child actor, but the voice was not even her. It was someone else. Jenna Davis. She just does voice acting, it looks like.
Oh, okay.
All right. So final line, Ty, is we kind of say, is this worth seeing? Who's it made for? Are there any groups that are like, I'm not going to enjoy this. Let's not go see it. And I think we are both in the mindset that, hey, let's wait for this to stream. Don't go spend your money.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth a watch, but like we said, just wait for it to be streaming sometime in the near future. As far as who will and won't like it, I think this movie can be enjoyed by pretty much casual moviegoers and film buffs alike, but don't expect this movie to reinvent the wheel. It's just a movie about a killer robot doll.
Yeah, and maybe that's where the problem is. It is a bit predictable after pretty early, actually. It's pretty predictable. Like even the beginning, like you know what happens from the trailer, but even if you didn't see the trailer and they're driving in the car and it's bad conditions, I'm like, all right, they're gonna die. Like her parents are gonna die. You know what's gonna happen. It doesn't try, and I don't think it tries to be super unique. And they know that. They're like, all right, this is just another movie we could throw out, and people will see it.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, spoiler alert. We need a drop there. We need something fancy for whenever we get.
Spoiler alert. Okay,
real low. Maybe so. Yeah, I see your picture here. You got Brandy Love in your picture. Maybe we can do one of those cameos. Get her to say it.
That would just be epic. Tay would get mad at me.
That's all right. All right. So spoilers here. Please turn it off if you don't want to hear any spoilers for M3GAN. And if you do turn it off, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. But we are going to continue on here. Let's get into some specifics here. What are some things we liked? What are some things we didn't like from the movie?
So my favorite scene that stood out to me was the scene in the woods, which I think is probably the best in the whole movie. M3GAN eventually shows up behind that bully, and then she chases him down on all fours like that. And then she rips his fucking ear off.
Yeah.
I didn't know an ear could come that far off your head. That was wild to see.
Well, it looked like where, those people with like the gauges.
Yeah.
Back in our day of the emo days, people would get those gauges. And that's kind of what she did. Like it pulled so far down before it actually ripped that I didn't think it was going to. I thought she was just stretching out that skin.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy to see that. Now, and then it eventually led to him getting absolutely demolished by a car, which was wild too. Did not expect that one bit. And
you would think a lot of movies try to stray away from children getting murdered.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like when a movie does have that happen, it generates that R rating. But maybe because it was more implied than actually shown that it avoided that R rating. But that could have been a thing. That kid could have got demolished, have him fly up in the air, or have him get bumped over the car, a little bit of blood splatter. They could have really went for it. And James Wan isn't afraid to do that normally. When he's the director, that is, obviously, with the Saw movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, could have got destroyed there. So, and maybe that ties into the thing that I didn't really like about the movie, was that it was easy to see where they cut to make PG-13. Like when she murders the old lady, the neighbor, the annoying neighbor, after she murders the dog. Two things there. I look, you'll get me to cry if you show me a dog get murdered.
Agreed.
But if you're going to go for it and pull those heartstrings, go for it.
Yep.
It was just implied the entire movie. That like, oh, well, the dog disappeared. It's like, yeah, we know the fucking robot killed it, but you're not showing it. And like that could have been done. And then when she finally murders the neighbor, I'm like, it was such a brutal way of killing her, but they left it out.
That's why I'm excited to see what is going to be different in the uncut version if that does end up being a thing. I wonder if we'll see how some of these played out. Like if that kid does get wrecked by a car, 'cause he's a little piece of shit. He deserves to get fucked up. Yeah, the neighbor sucked too. I want to see them get fucked up. So let's see in the uncut version, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like go for it if you're going to go for it. And even if an uncut version comes out, this isn't a movie where I'm like, yeah, I need to rewatch the whole thing. I'm probably just going to like YouTube the scenes that come out that were cut.
Yeah, I agree.
Trying to think of other things we didn't like. It almost was on the verge of what we talked about with those comedy horror movies where you don't know what it's supposed to be. And it didn't do a terrible job of that here, but there was obviously the dynamic between I think he was the CEO, maybe the owner of the toy company, and his assistant. It was like a kooky back and forth. Yeah, I'm the big boss, and this dude, I just shit on him, which ends up being something we'll talk about here in a second. But that dynamic, it's a little bit annoying.
It is.
And yeah, I don't know what they were. Anytime they were on the screen, I cringed a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be comic relief, but I don't want comic relief in my horror movies for the most part.
Yeah, I kind of thought that CEO guy was almost like overacting. I don't know if that was like to the movie's point or to his point, if he was just doing that or if they wanted him to do like that. It seemed like he was overacting everything he said. It was weird.
And then I think he did the same thing in Shang-Chi. I think he overacted in that as well. I'm trying to remember his character. John, and I mean just that name. I'm pretty sure that was his buddy, who was just kind of like the quirky sidekick guy.
Yeah. So it might just be on him.
Yeah, I think they knew what they were getting when they casted him.
One other thing I didn't like that's made me cringe to my core was whenever M3GAN started to sing the Titanium song by Sia. It just made me cringe. It was very. I just like even thinking about it now, I was just like, what in the fucking hell?
Did that a lot. She likes singing, and then it was all meant to cheer Katie up and all that, and it would just creep the hell out of me. And like that's another thing I don't get. Like, it happened with Annabelle, right? Where they're like, oh, here's this creepy ass toy doll. Let's bring it in the house. My daughter will like that. It's like, bro, you see that thing? Trying to think some other things I didn't like about it. Or things I even did like. She was brutal. And I think that is a good thing. But again, it wasn't shown, which was disappointing there. It felt like it dragged a little bit. I think it was only an hour 42. And that's a problem, right? If a movie is an hour 42, that's not long.
Right.
But if it still feels like it drags, that's an issue.
Yeah, like I said about Knock at the Cabin, that went quick for an hour and 40. This kind of felt a little bit long for that. So I agree. It definitely did drag in some spots. One more scene that stood out to me whenever she was like dancing in the hallway with the sword, just lighting people up. That was pretty cool.
I'll pop out the ending here. So at the end, obviously they defeat her. That ending scene was inspired by Child's Play, the Chucky movies. So they have the final battle. They finally kill her. But the home assistant light turns on at the very end before it goes to black. And what it seems like, we talked about the assistant and the CEO of this movie. The assistant is seen in the movie stealing ideas and sending files to some other company. So that kind of clicked with you. Oh shit, there's going to be more. There's going to be like an army of them. They're going to mass produce these toys. And I'm pretty sure that's what will happen in the next showing. I don't know if it's been confirmed that there's going to be a sequel, but that makes sense to me. And what it's going to end up being is, there was Alien and then there was Aliens. You get the plural form of it. Maybe it's going to be Megans, or they'll give her some other stupid name. But either way,
I think they should name it M3G4N. I think they should just keep adding letters and numbers to the title until it's just all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just numbers at the end.
But I completely forgot about the assistant stealing the idea, so I think that's probably definitely the way they're going to go with the second one if they do. Because I forgot all about that, so I was just thinking at the end, like, how are they going to lead this up to a sequel? But then you just reminded me of that. So I wonder if it would be like an army of M3GANs, or if it'd be like if they would have like an Ultron type deal going on where they all have the original M3GAN's memories, or if they're each sentient in their own way. I don't know.
Like a hive mind type deal.
Yeah, I definitely don't think a sequel would probably be as good as the first for this movie, to be honest, but I'd probably see it.
I would have to wait for one of those convince me segments, Ty, because I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
The thing I saw that someone assumed was that M3GAN could connect to the internet. And if she could connect to the internet, she could upload herself to it. And I think the assumption is that the home assistant thing, she uploaded herself into that.
Right, yeah, because it does like blink or whatever on the way. I do remember that.
Right. So something happened there. I don't exactly know what, but definitely got uploaded. And anything else? That's pretty much the movie. And now as we're kind of talking about it more, you realize there wasn't a ton to it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why for being an hour and 40, it doesn't go very quickly. Like we said, should have been rated R. So that's why it was about like a 60 out of 100 for me. It was okay.
Yeah.
Middle of the road.
Yeah, it was okay. Check it out for, a movie night.
Yeah.
But don't spend your money. You don't gotta do that.
Yeah, definitely not.
Anything else that we're missing? Again, it feels like we're not saying a lot, but we said everything at the same time.
Whenever they're fighting in the garage and Katie kind of like real steel robot boxes Megan, that was pretty funny.
So that's what I said the same thing. I said real steel while we were watching it. Me and Sophie, we were watching it, and Megan's there, and Sophie was like, she's going to use the big robot thing. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. And then my thought was like, maybe not, because that thing was like big and slow. And then there it comes, and I'm like, have you seen Real Steel? She never saw it. I'm like, that's Hugh Jackman coming out of nowhere controlling this thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't guess. I would say guess Real Steel's Rotten Tomato scores right now, and I'll tell you if you're in the ballpark or not.
I bet it's bad. I feel like people didn't like it. Wait, are we doing critic or audience?
Let's say both. Try both.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Critic is gonna be below 50.
Okay.
And audience 60-ish.
You're close. So the tomato meter, it's 60% critic and 73% audience. People like this movie.
Okay, interesting. I didn't think they did.
No, I don't like it.
It's like I don't know a ton of people that were like, oh yeah, it was a sick movie.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was PG-13 either. I kind of thought it was like a kids movie, but I do remember seeing it in the theater. I don't know why. 2011, so I was old enough to say, no, I'm not going to go see that, but I did anyway.
The kid, he looks like a crazy person now. But
is he the kid that was Harry Potter's younger son in Harry Potter?
No,
it wasn't.
I'm like, I don't think so.
Just in this little thumbnail I'm getting on IMDb, it looked like young James Severus Harry Snape Potter, whatever the hell his name was.
right. The one that turned into the story that no one considers canon. I forget what that was called, but I remember the part of this movie that made me cringe really hard was when he started doing his little Justin Bieber dance with the robot.
Oh my gosh, I just had a Vietnam flashback to that. I haven't seen this movie in years, and I just remembered that.
That's what they were trying to get. They were trying to hit that audience.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so yeah, that does happen. Megan gets taken care of by some big slow robot, which I didn't really like that part. I'm like, all right, she's murdering all these other people, but this slow robot that's controlled by a human, you could have just whapped the controller out of her hand and it would have been over.
Oh my gosh, there's a Real Steel 2.
No, there's not. Don't say that.
Oh, wait, no, wait. It says Real Steel 2. Hugh Jackman sequel still has a fighting chance. So there we go. We got that to look forward to.
Stop it.
That's an article from January 12th, 2023. So that's not even that long ago.
That kid's like
Real Steel 2 talks are finally happening. What? Who's asking for this to happen?
Same people asking for Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we're out of fucking ideas.
Real Steel 2 them.
Great. Ty, I think that's it.
I think that'll do it. We got a big episode next week, and I'm going to finally show everybody how much of a Marvel nerd I am.
Yeah, I'm excited for that because I'm not. I enjoy the movies, but definitely not super into them.
Oh, yeah. That should be a good one then.
Awesome. Well, Ty, let's do it again next week. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it makes your decision a little easier if you're going to see this movie or not. don't spend the money, I think is the conclusion we came to. It's enjoyable enough, but it's still middle of the mall. It's not fantastic.
Yeah, shut off your Alexa tonight before you go to bed.
Night night.